listening to Co-op Radio, KVRX HD3 Austin, streaming at koop.org. Radio for people, not for profit. This is Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show. I'm your host today, Kanya Lyons. Each week on the show, Volumes takes you behind the scenes to find out what makes the library a hub of learning, technology, and inspiration for our community. And thanks to the kind folks of Writing on the Air for keeping their listeners up to date about our Volumes guests. And as they mentioned, today we have Ann Minner here to talk about early literacy and beginner reading books. And hi, welcome, Ann.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Pretty good.
So tell me a little bit about these beginning reader books. What are they for?
Well, first I'm going to make the distinction between beginning readers can refer to either the books or the children, but while we talk about it tonight, we'll talk about beginning readers being the books and emergent readers being the children. That will keep it a little straighter.
Okay.
These are books that are specifically designed for emergent readers so they can practice their skills.
Fantastic. And can you explain what they are a little bit more beyond that?
Sure. They are specifically designed with their actual design and their content to make it easier for kids to really do the work of learning to read. So the decoding, the sounding out the words, they use sight words, and they are specifically done for those emergent readers. And there's a very wide range of them now. There's all sorts of series and levels, and they have... they're really very useful, and they've got quite a nice little backstory.
Oh, I can't wait to get into that. Well, so can you quickly tell me what makes, these beginning reader books different from picture books and chapter books?
Well, picture books, your general picture book, are going to be different in size and shape in general. You do get some smaller ones, but they're going to be bigger. Picture books are meant for fluent readers to read to children who might not be readers yet. And chapter books are the smaller books that we would normally consider just a fiction paperback that are for kids who are fluent readers or working almost fluent readers. So you've got Charlotte's Web is a good example of what a chapter book is instead of a beginning reader or a picture book.
Oh, excellent. Well, so as far as the design, I would like to get a little more into that when we come back from the announcements. We're going to continue this conversation after three of our favorite librarians tell us a little bit about some of the community activities and special events that are happening at libraries across town. And you're going to hear Ann Minner's voice. Again, this is the pre-recorded version of it.
That's me.
My name is Blair Parsons, and I'm a reference librarian at the Falk Central Library. The Little Walnut Creek Branch Library will host The Art of Serenity, Finding Peace Through Painting and Drawing, from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, Friday, May 12th. This program offers a way to de-stress, relax, and become more focused through watercolor painting, drawing, and coloring. Wednesday, May 17th, the Ruiz Branch Library will host a business assessment and goal-setting workshop led by instructors from the Service Corps of Retired Executives. The workshop will address industry assessment, identifying your business needs, and developing workable goals. Following the workshop, library staff will feature business databases available for free access at home with your Austin Public Library card number. The Business Assessment and Goal-Setting Workshop is from 2 o'clock to 4:30 Wednesday, May 17th at the Ruiz Branch Library.
Hey there, Austin. Teen Program Specialist Michael Harley from the downtown Falk Central Library here with a rundown of teen and tween events happening across the Austin Public Library system this week. We've got another great week for teen book clubs. Starting things off on Thursday, May 11th at 5:30 p.m., the Little Walnut Creek Branch will host their Teen Manga Book Club. Participants can explore and celebrate a new manga series, along with trivia, button making, and snacks. Due to mature content, this program is recommended for ages 13 to 18. Also on Thursday, May 11th at 7 p.m., the Yarborough Branch Teen Book Club turns their focus towards fantasy with Jonathan Stroud's The Amulet of Samarkand, Book 1 of the popular Bartimaeus trilogy. On Friday, May 12th at 4 p.m., the Southeast Branch wraps up their Shaping Spaces art workshop series for grades 4th through 9th, exploring the overlap of innovation and nature with STEAM-based programming. The final project will focus on makey-makey kits that turn the most unusual everyday objects into pieces of technology. On Saturday, May 13th at 2 p.m., the University Hills branch continues their weekly Saturday movie matinee series with Jason Bourne, the fifth film in the Bourne series that follows Matt Damon's title character, still on the run from the CIA. Jason Bourne is rated PG-13. Finally, on Tuesday, May 16th at 6:30 p.m., the Housen Branch Teen Book Club will be discussing Six of Crows, the start of the new Dregs book series from writer Leigh Bardugo, best-selling author of the Grisha trilogy. Didn't catch all of the finer points? More details for these and additional library programs can be found at library.austintexas.gov/events.
This is Ann Minner, Youth Librarian at the Old Quarry Branch. I get to highlight a few Austin Public Library events happening for kids this week. So much is happening this week. On Thursday, May 11th, the North Village branch hosts Aussie, a Bow Wow reading dog, at 3:30 p.m. Also on that afternoon, the Cepeda branch is hosting a Lego Lab beginning at 4. On Friday, May 12th, the Spicewood Springs branch is presenting a Play, Read, Grow literacy workshop for caregivers and their kids 5 years old and younger. This workshop begins at 10:30 a.m. On Monday, May 15th, the Manchac branch is hosting Music and Movement for ages 3 to 5 at 3:30 p.m. There will be lots of music and dancing. On Tuesday, May 16th, the Falk Central Library will provide games for the whole family at their Tabletop Tuesday Family Board Game Night. This program is from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. On Wednesday, May 17th, the Little Walnut branch hosts their Minecraft Club at 4:30 p.m., and the Housen branch will be providing all the supplies for a family craft night starting at 6 p.m. These are just a few things happening at the Austin Public Library this week. Additional details and events are at library.austintexas.gov/events.
Austin Book Arts Center is a new nonprofit teaching book arts to promote literacy. Our classes include bookbinding, letterpress printing, calligraphy, book repair, and decorative papermaking. More info at atxbookarts.org.
Support comes from the College Destination Center at ACC, where future students can explore majors and careers, learn about financial aid, and get help with enrollment for college classes. Details at austincc.edu/startnow.
And we're back with the Austin Public Library radio show Volumes, and we're going to continue our discussion with Ann Minner, who is a youth librarian, and we're talking about what makes beginner books unique. So tell us, Ann, you were telling me about the origin story of beginning reader books.
Well, if you
the modern,
right, the modern one, because if you remember, at least when I was in first and second grade, there were a lot of Dick and Jane books and Puff and Spot. But there was a journalist named John Hersey who wrote an article in Life magazine in about 1954, I think, and it was about reading. And he was very critical of the school primers that were out there, like Dick and Jane. And this is great. He called the children, quote, abnormally courteous, unnaturally clean boys and girls, unquote. And then he asked, it's just sort of in general, why those school primers couldn't have better illustrations like the books that were being sold in bookstores. And he actually named a few artists and said, why can't they have like people like Dr. Seuss doing the illustrations, who we know as Theodore Geisel. And one of the publishers, the director of Houghton Mifflin at the time, knew Theodore Geisel, and he challenged him to create a school primer with this certain set of words. And he wanted him to make something that would that a first grader could not put down. Mm-hmm. So, Dr. Seuss said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And he made The Cat in the Hat with 236 different words. The story is that, or at least one of the stories, he told several different stories about how he did this, but one of my favorites is that he said, I was so bored with the list of words that were on this list that I just found the first two that rhymed and made a story with cat and hat. And so he published this and everybody went nuts. The teachers loved it. Parents thought it was funny. Kids couldn't put it down. They started reading it. Even now, it's one of the most popular beginning readers that we have, The Cat in the Hat. They've made movies out of it, live action, cartoon, all sorts of things. So that's how the sort of modern beginning reader started. There are still those out there that are sort of Dick and Jane-like, but you get things now that are much more exciting for kids. And, The Cat in the Hat's kind of a scamp. He almost gets everybody in trouble, But of course, modern times now have changed, and so now it's a little weird because you've got this stranger coming into the kid's house. The kids are left alone. It's a very different time, but it's still a terrific beginning reader, and kids just flock to it, and parents remember it from when they were children, and so on like that.
Absolutely,
so that's how the modern one started, which is great.
Fantastic. Yeah, we were definitely big Dr. Seuss fans when I was a kid, and when my daughter was learning to read, we had a ton of them.
And he's got two.
They can't put them down.
Right.
It's true.
He's got two separate sets. He's got a whole set of beginning readers like Hop on Pop and Green Eggs and Ham, but then he has a whole set of books that are picture books like The 500 Hats of Bartholomew Cubbins, which is definitely not a beginning reader. That's got a lot of text, and that's for definitely a fluent reader. So
awesome. Well, so can you tell me a little bit about how the books are actually designed?
Yeah, sure. A lot of actual work goes into these books because they're meant for emergent readers who are learning to read, who are practicing their craft, who are learning to decode things. So in the design, when you're looking at a beginning reader book, you want to look at the design and the content. So in the design, we're actually talking about the text, the font. You want to use a serifed font because it has those curly cues, the old-fashioned G's and A's.
Yeah.
Because they have done studies that have shown that kids can identify those letters better in, say, Times New Roman than they could in something that's sans serif. So the best beginning readers will have a serifed font. There's a lot of extra spacing between the letters, the kerning and the leading, all those printing words, so that kids can actually see the letters more clearly. That's a very big thing in beginning readers. Also in the design, there's a lot of white space. So you don't have, you've got wider margins, you've got, there's more room between the sentences, so that kids who are really looking at those letters can figure out what those letters are. Because when we read, it's quick and you just keep going because you're a reader. These children are learning and practicing to read. So also the illustrations are very important in your beginning readers because they depict the action in what's happening on that page exactly. If you're reading a Henry and Mudge and it talks about Mudge splashing through the river, it will show the dog with splashing through the river. Or if it says that Henry was worried, they can look at the picture and see a worried expression on their face. And this does two things. It helps them figure out the context of what they're reading. So maybe they couldn't figure out the word worried, but they look at his face and they know that he's upset about something and they can work it out that way. Or if they're not sure what the word worried means, they can look at the picture and see Mudge's or Henry's face. So it's very big in visual literacy and practicing that and picking up context clues. So the pictures of the illustrations are very important. There's also very clear details. You don't want the pictures to be too muddy, and they want bright colors so that you can tell what's happening in the pictures. Also, the size of the book is usually smaller than a picture book. Picture books are large, generally. These books are more of a rectangle, and they are meant for children to read them solo. You sit crisscross applesauce, you put that book in your lap, and it's just you and the book, right? Because you're practicing your reading. So that's all design. The content is the other thing you want to look at. So when we talked about those 236 words that Dr. Seuss used, generally beginning readers have a controlled vocabulary. So you're not going to find a lot of surprises. You probably, in the early versions, or the early emergent or beginning readers, you won't find words like kitchen because TCH is difficult when you're trying to learn to read.
That makes sense.
But you might only have sight words in them. So there are no big surprises in beginning readers. They're all words that kids are familiar with or becoming familiar with. Also in the content, you're looking at the topics. These are kids that are starting to want to read about family and school, but they're also wanting to read about simple conflicts that are then resolved easily at the end. right? They don't need a big mystery. They don't, they're not ready for time travel or anything like that. But they want to know that, Penny took this marble that wasn't hers and she feels really guilty about it. And how's she going to give it back? And of course, by the end of the book, she gives it back and she's forgiven because she was on it. All these things. And that really speaks to kids. Beginning reader books aren't generally big on plot because the kid is working their way through the words. So they're not necessarily great for reading aloud, but they're wonderful for reading solo and working out the words. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the design of the beginning reader books.
And so based on all the things that you were telling me, the kerning and the white space and the simple colors, that's all based on actual research with children and reading.
Yeah, they've done tons of research. They, of course, but it's true. They've done it in schools. They've looked in schools. They've talked to teachers. These are all things that people who study early literacy and make their academic careers out of it have done, and it works. It's amazing.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you make it easy on them, give them all the tools.
Please, because if they can enjoy, if they learn to read and they feel that confidence, then they will keep reading, and then they keep coming back to the library.
Absolutely. So can you talk a little bit about some of the different types of early? I mean, I know we mentioned some of them. Are One Fish, Two Fish? Is that an early reader?
That is an early reader, and a beginning reader. Here's what's interesting: the publishers have not standardized the marked reading levels in these books. So there are lots of different series, and some of them that have a number 1 for early reader. Some of them have 1 word to a page, which is great if that's the level you need. Some have a 1 and they have paragraphs in them. So I run into this in the library all the time. I'm constantly telling parents that the best way for them to choose a book in the beginning readers for their child, for their emergent reader, is to open it up and to see what's in there, because you know what your child has been reading and you know what their books look like. And so you can't just go by the 1 or the 2 or the 3 that's on the spine. You have to open it up because all the publishers have leveled their things differently, which is interesting. So your best bet's to open the book and to find your emergent reader's comfort zone, because you don't want something that's too difficult. You don't want something that's too easy either. You want your child, to practice their reading and to keep learning.
I remember being overwhelmed by all the levels, the numbers, and my daughter and I kind of shrugged our shoulders, looked at each other, and we went and asked the librarian. And that's what is so great about, having librarians in the youth section is it's such a great resource. But yeah, somebody went and explained to me, no, it doesn't matter that she's in kindergarten. If she's reading this stuff, give her the level that she's at. Exactly what you're saying. I
think they all have the best of intentions, and all their books follow their own marked reading level. It's just that they're not all the same. So you need to look inside and see what your child is ready for or past.
And does... I know that we have a lot of different types of story times at the library. Are there any sort of story times or programs that are designed around these books that we're talking about?
Not so much in story time. Story time is usually for the kids that aren't reading yet, although some story time kids do really well and read the book before I get a chance to. There's no cheating in story time. They can see the words on the book. They know what you're saying. These books are really more for kids working through it themselves, or with one parent helping them decode things and work through. Like I said, they're not really heavy on plot. So, and sometimes they're broken into chapters, just mini little chapters. So they would be too long for, I consider story time. So these are for, they're a great thing to add into what you're taking home. So you could be taking home a bunch of picture books and a couple chapter books that you're reading together, but take home some beginning readers as well, so that your emergent reader can do some work on her own.
Okay. And so for a parent, what would be the best way to do it? To just read it through with them once, or let them read it and then when they wait for them to ask for help reading certain words? Or
if you've got someone who knows some sight words, who is starting to read things on their own, I would give them the book themselves and let them sit and have some time. If they want to read it with you, of course, read it with them. And I've found that it's easier not to let a child struggle over a word if they can't figure it out, but to give them that word. So if the word is wooden and they aren't figuring it out because the two O's are stumping them or whatever, you just tell them what it is, they repeat it, and carry on with the story. And that way there's no feeling of anxiety or I can't do this, or because they already know that you're a reader. They already know you know how to read. You giving them a word is no big deal. You read to them all the time, right? So there's less struggle that way. Some people might disagree. I'm a librarian, not a reading teacher. So to each his own.
Well, so where do we keep these early readers at the library?
Every single library branch, including the Falk Central branch, has beginning readers, and they are in a special section, in the kids section. Their call number begins with E1, and then their fiction generally. We do have nonfiction as well. But they are all in their own section. So you can find the E1 books. They will most likely have a label over them that says beginning readers. If you have trouble finding them or just need some help or want to talk to someone lovely, ask a staff member to take you to where the beginning readers are, and they will take you over, and they will help you look through it and decide what is the best level for your child. They'll show you a couple different ones, and just you can ask the youth librarian. They'll walk you right through it.
So each library has them kind of in a different little section.
Yes, they're generally near the picture books.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And there's lots of characters that kids might already know. Fly Guy has his, and Henry and Mudge, and there's even some Dora in there. There's all sorts of characters that kids enjoy and that they want to read about. Even Barbie, she has some good ones.
Oh, okay. So the crossover is like some of the picture books, those same characters might appear in these early readers, and then later in chapter books, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
so the
they
kids
appear
can
all
follow
over the place. And so if the kids, really like a certain movie, they can get a picture book from that, or a beginning reader from that movie. We even have Star Wars. We have all sorts. I know.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. So we have lots and lots of different beginning readers, and bring your emergent reader in, and they'll help you pick out the books they want.
This is true.
Right.
So can you tell me what your favorite beginning reader book is?
I love Fly Guy.
Fly Guy?
By Ted Arnold. He's really funny, and he has a pet who's a human. So, yeah, it's really great. He does all sorts of great things, and they're funny. They're the pictures are terrific, and boys and girls love them. Even adult boys and girls.
And we didn't talk much about the rhyming, but it does seem like rhyming words are a big thing in these
Sometimes
readers.
that's true. Sometimes there are rhyming, but not all the time. Sometimes it's just story, like Frog and Toad.
Oh, yeah. Okay, right. I remember those.
There's an oldie.
Those are great. Yeah. Well, it's been such a pleasure to chat with you and learn more about this, stuff called early literacy and early reader books. It is. Excellent. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Additional details are online at library.austintexas.gov. We are going to play an excerpt from the library podcast, Austin Creates. We have a whole lot of different library podcasts, oral literature. We have a My Library podcast, number of different ones. Austin Creates is just one of many. And so coming up, we're going to listen to a clip of APL's very own Erin Negron having a little chit chat with local radio creator, producer, and personality Rebecca McEnroy, sharing her thoughts about storytelling.
Part of what I hear that comes out in your work is that you've got this interesting story and different stories in all kinds of contexts. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious, what do you think is the common thread that makes a good story?
The common thread that makes a good story. I don't know about a common thread that makes a good story. I would say more so that the only way we understand our lives and who we are is through stories. Mm-hmm. Like the only way we make sense of everything from what we eat to what we wear to how we interact with people on a daily basis are through stories. Like everything and the way we associate with every single thing in this world, I think, is through is a story, is through a story, is through some type of mythology. And so I think, I don't know the answer to your question of what makes a good story. I guess if you're moving and living through the world and you think you have some sort of sense of who you are and who other people are, you can understand a good story.
You're listening to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show.
On Co-op 91.7 FM, Hornsby, Austin, radio for people, not for profit. Welcome back to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show. We just listened to a short excerpt from the library's Austin Creates podcast. That recording featuring Rebecca McEnroy, along with many other candid conversations and episodes of Volumes, can be found on SoundCloud and iTunes. Additional information at library.austintexas.gov/volumes. And I also have some very exciting news that I'm going to announce for the first time right now. Starting Wednesday, June 7th, on this very show, Volumes will be broadcast over the radio airways starting at 2:30 in the afternoon on 91.7 FM Co-op Radio right here. You can still, of course, people can still listen at koop.org. Next week on the show, we are going to have Susan Ritterreiser, and she's going to talk to us about the Austin History Center's book called Historic Movie Houses of Austin. Susan Ritterreiser and Mike Miller together, they both work at the Austin History Center, put together this really, really amazing history of the early movie houses here in Austin. And so she's going to tell us a lot about that. And we have details about this and everything about the Austin Public Library, of course, details at library.austintexas.gov/volumes. And it's been such a pleasure to chat with you today, and I really want to thank you for coming into the studio. And
you're welcome.
Enlightening us all about early readers. And that story about Dr. Seuss was really cool. I had no idea. I never really thought about the difference between, Dick and Jane books, Spot books versus,
That's why I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I guess that's a wrap, y'all. See you next week. Or listen. Thanks for listening to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show. Details at library.austintexas.gov/volumes.
Want to give a special thanks to our audio engineer, DJ Harris, and our volunteer production assistant, Sev Corson.
And thanks to the musicians who composed and performed our original theme song. Andrew Noble on violin, Kirk Duvall on guitar, and APL's very own Mike Wheat on percussion.
Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show, airs Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on koop.org Community Radio.